Look, and good morning, everybody is on already. And we'll expect a few more to drop in now because we did stop and restart. So we'll give a few seconds for people to actually come on, and then we'll get started. So nothing like technical hitches to keep us young. Stops us getting complacent with the technology. It was a joy because we had kind of a 30-second delay. Then we discovered actually that was the sound playing through and the video coming through from the live stream. So it's all fixed now. So morning, everybody. It's great to see everyone online. So shall we just kick off now as we're running a couple minutes late? Joe's got a book out. Excellent. We've got a book up here. Fantastic. So as everyone's coming on, good morning from the shed, and welcome to the live interactive podcast. It's brilliant to have you here with us this morning. All the previous sessions are now loaded up on the YouTube channel, which is the Progress Shed, so please subscribe, get on there. And if you want to see sessions from Jim Lawless, Phil Hesketh, Paul Dunn, and many more, then they're all up and loaded, which will be brilliant. Right now, the game is really changing, and the normal is new every day and every hour even. Yes, I think as Philip Hesketh points out, we are all in it. We're all on the same river, but we're all in our own boats. So right now, can we make sure that we're planning, thinking, investing, driving our way forward, and make sure that motivation, that drive keeps going? And as requested, we've continued these sessions through till the end of this year. So we're committed to that. And therefore, we've really pushed forward for the lineup to grow and grow and grow. Today, I'm looking forward to this session, but we'll get to it in a minute because coming up, we've got Bam Breen of Canary, Helio Bogas coming back to do an actual interview, Steve Judge back by popular demand, James Sinclair, Nick Hem on First Impression. So we have a great lineup coming up. Next week, we've got Jim James coming back, and he's actually going to introduce a new tool that I believe will actually really change the way you approach your digital marketing, which is imaginatively entitled the Communications Activity Index. But it's a fantastic tool. So Jim James will be back next week to introduce that. But now, I can't really express how powerful I believe this session is going to be from a motivation and an information and just a mindset perspective. Adrian Webster, the polar bear pirate himself, introduced us to the world of polar bear pirates. I have mine here, which it's one of those silly little books that's almost a child's book. I think it's actually advertised as being a child or kid's book for grown-ups. But it clarifies so many of the thought patterns and so many of the people and the elements that get in our way. And this man is actually no head tread, no neg feg, and no bloater. He is inspirational, and I am so pleased that he decided to join us this morning. So to kick us off, Adrian, let me just ask you a question. How did the world of polar bear pirates actually come about?
Well, thank you, Phil. Thank you all ever so much for having me to join you this morning. But before I start, I do move around a lot. I started off life as a riot police officer, and it's an old habit I have of sort of staying on the move every time I feel a crowd of people are sort of looking at me. So I apologize up front for that. But Polar Bear Pirates really was created out of necessity. I'd spent most of my career in the commercial environment working in small and medium-sized businesses. And I ended up in the IT industry, and overnight I was given 150 people to try and manage, to motivate, to lead. But what I wasn't given, I was never really given the budgets, the money I felt I needed, and I certainly didn't have the money my competitors appeared to have. And as everyday people, that's the only resource I had around me was my people. We somehow had to deliver extraordinary results. And to do that, we had to pull together as one big collaborating team. We had to put customers at the heart of everything we ever considered doing. We had to be more agile, more proactive, more innovative, and we had to steal opportunities from under the noses of our huge competitors out there. And I somehow had to move from being a manager and try and step into the shoes of a leader to try and engage, retain and inspire my people, and inspire them hopefully with myself to really try and make a difference. And I suppose out of necessity to do that, to engage, inspire and motivate people, I needed to come up with something different. And Polar Bear Pirates, the motivational world, was born out of that. That's how it came about.
Excellent. And I suppose looking at that side of it, what's your secret to success?
I don't think there's a secret. I think there's a secret of failure, and that's trying to please everybody all the time. But having said that, Peter, I do think there are keys to success. And I think above all, the most important key is you have to be prepared to change. You have to be prepared to adapt. If you put yourself in the shoes of anybody who's been a big success and has stayed successful, they will have continued to change. Pretend if you can, you're Tiger Woods. You're Tiger Woods at the age of 21. You are the greatest golfer the planet's ever witnessed. You've just destroyed the US Masters by 12 strokes. And you're seriously wedged up, excuse the pun. But what does he do? He decides to change his basic swing that year to continue improving on that. 22 years later, he wins it again for the 5th time. This time, once more, having radically changed his basic swing following major back surgery. I think we have to be prepared to change, to adapt. We have to be prepared to make mistakes, to move on, and we have to be ready and in a position to progress. I think having a sense of progress is probably one of the absolute keys to someone feeling motivated.
Excellent. And I suppose one of the things which I think anybody who's read your book will take away are the numerous characters and I mean, the Molasses Man being one of my favourites, nice but slow. And I suppose as we move through these times, and I think that element of adaptability is absolutely the most important element for businesses, just being able to cope with what comes tomorrow, recognizing there is no new normal, there's just what's here, and dealing with that. Are there other characters that we should be made aware of?
I'll just say, I think at the moment, the position we're in, this incredibly difficult time, I don't think there's ever been such a big opportunity for businesses to really sort of jump ahead of the competition, to really improve themselves at the moment. The people, probably one of the biggest characters, the people who are resilient to change of any sort of type, and you may recognize some of these people. They're the people I call the bloaters. Bloaters are boasting, lazy, obnoxious, and tediously egotistical reptilian shadows. They have degrees in hindsight, they have the access to the universe, we've all met them, and they're absolutely bursting at the seams with opinions. Let me whisper you something about opinions. Opinions are a little bit like farts. Everybody seems to quite like their own, and these people have opinions on absolutely everything. And then we have the neg ferrets. The neg ferrets, well, they're the sort of little warriors of doom. They're the sort of dedicated disciples of the downside. They go around moan. Oh, I don't like Christmas. I don't like snow. It turns to slush, you know. They're the ones who light up the room when they walk out. We all know a few neg ferrets out there. And then we've got the, well, they all come under the heading of what I call the pothole people. The pothole people in life. Whenever you try to go anywhere or achieve anything, there's always a pothole in the road ahead of you, ready to pull you down, to puncture your dreams, to burst your plans. They predict 10 out of 2 disasters, the pothole people. But the people, if I'm being serious for a moment, that I really need to engage and inspire aren't those people. We can all instantly recognize the bloaters, the neg ferrets, and all those incredibly negative people out there. But the people I really need to engage, there's 2 types of people. The first group are the people I call the I'm just. The I'm just people. Whenever one of my new books comes out and goes on the bookshelves, you, the author, you get invited to go and visit organizations. Don't get me wrong, as a working class lad, I'm as chuffed as a train. It's an enormous honor. But you know, I know when I go and visit these places, I'm guaranteed to come across a character that when I meet them, I feel like grabbing hold of them and shaking them. The people I call the I'm just. So I remember I first came across this, it was 2003, I think, my first book had been published. I had an invitation from the Dean and the Chancellor at Leeds University to go and visit them. Being shown around the uni by the Dean and the Chancellor. We went into this room and we're talking to this lovely lady there. We're sort of laughing and joking with her for a good 10 minutes or so. And then in front of the Dean and the Chancellor, I asked the question, I said, can I ask you, as part of the team at Leeds here, what do you do? I'll never forget, she instantly dropped her face to the floor. She lost eye contact. And she mumbled it. She said, Adrian, I'm just a teacher. And I remember looking at her thinking, how can anybody describe themselves as just a teacher? My father, Peter, was a Yorkshire coal miner. He died donkeys years ago. He lived in his St. Council house for donkey's years. And if you'd said to my dad, Jack Webster, apparently, Jack, you were once just a coal miner. If you weren't a lady because he was an old gentleman, he probably wanted to get out of his chair and deck you. He probably looked at you and said, you know, I wasn't just a coal miner. I was a very good coal miner. We shifted more tonnage from our pit than any other pit. I don't want people in my teams ever looking at themselves as I'm just, or seeing as what they're doing is just a stopgap, you know, till they go on to do something better. You know, you get a lot of people in the sales environment say, you know, I'm only in, you know, I'm just doing this just for a couple of years, so I'll find a proper job. This sort of attitude towards it. But the real people that I want to spend most of my time trying to engage as a leader, the people I call the sleepwalkers. Now, a sleepwalker character is someone that I desperately try to avoid becoming myself, because it is so easy to become a sleepwalker. Sleepwalkers, they're shining at 60 watts. When they first joined my team, they were shining at 100 watts. What's happened is, without realizing it, they started to lose sight of the difference that they as an individual are capable of making. And they've now put themselves in grave danger of drifting into the seductive orbit of the arch enemy of success, the silent assassin of success, planet complacency, where they could spend the rest of their time going around and around and around, doing a good job, doing a very good job, when they are capable of so much more. And that is probably, as a professional speaker, as an author, the person I have to really, really try to sort of work hard at avoiding, and I'm thinking at times all the time, am I sleepwalking here? And at the moment, it's very, very easy with the sort of the conditions that we're going through to start sleepwalking. It's very, very easy to do that, to look at the future and think, oh, this, that, this, that, this. It is critical that none of us, I'm being very serious now, fall into that trap, into that seductive honey trap of orbiting planet complacency. Does that make sense to you? It's sort of
It actually does. It's quite interesting for me, because one of the major reasons that we ended up as a family leaving London and moving out west and starting new businesses and having new lives was because actually I found myself in that position of just saying I am just a. And the idea of sleepwalking is something which I think, without giving it a name, has always been something which I'm a little bit terrified of, having done a few years of it. And actually, I think coming through right now, setting the future goals and creating that plan to move yourself forward in life and in your business is absolutely so important. And as we're pushing forward, I suppose there's that element of really needing to make sure that as leaders in our environment, we're getting the best out of people, and the very best out of people. So what would be your top tips on that area?
Well, just on the sleepwalkers, they're not a negative character. They're people who do a very good job, but that's it. In my teams, when I was running bigger teams, sort of the peloton of people, you know, you got the sort of 2 or 3 people, say out of a big team, 100 people, you've got 2 or 3 people who are just exceptional, extraordinary. Then you have this sort of huge sort of peloton of people. And then you've got the people below that sort of either struggling or they don't really want to sort of put the effort in. And some of them, if I'm honest with you, you know, that you wish they'd go and join a competitor. But I'm talking about that sort of mass peloton of people there that are sleepwalking. Sorry, Peter, what was the question again?
The question was really how, as being an inspirational leader, do you get the very best out of your people?
I think the way to get the very best out of people is, the first thing is to always be yourself, to be authentic with people, to be real, not to try and pretend to be something you're not. I personally would rather people dislike me as a leader than like me for some pretend person that I'm not. when I'm running workshops, in one of the workshops that I run with people, I ask a question. I say to people, what is it you want more than anything else from a leader, or for that matter, from anybody else around you in your team? And, you know, we start off with the whole sea of Post-it notes all around the walls. You know, we've got recognition, we've got support, validation, all these lovely words. And at the end of every session, these words always get percolated into 3 words that end up on one flip chart. And the number one word that people always sort of percolate down to is they need time. They need your time. So no matter how crazy, how hectic, how busy you think you are as a leader, you somehow have to make time to engage with people, even if it's just for 30 seconds. Number 2, the second word that goes there is the word care. I don't mind working for any of you guys. I don't mind doing long hours, commuting into work. I don't mind dealing with difficult people, doing an incredibly tough job, so long as I think you care about me. You care about the business, you care about what we as a team are trying to achieve, you care about yourself, that you care. The moment you don't care is the moment I start thinking, actually, I'll go and do something else. So we got time, care, and the third word, which is the most interesting to me, is the word fallibility. People want to work for human beings around them, especially these days in this incredibly, rapidly becoming automated world. Please never ever try to be perfect as a person. Strive for perfection. Strive, go in pursuit of excellence. But if you're trying to be perfect as a person, people will really, really struggle to engage you. It's the old joke, it's why they put rubbers on pencils and why they put bumpers on cars. We all make mistakes. And I personally think the very best leaders out there, they're vulnerable in some ways. They're people who sort of are human, they sort of make mistakes. They don't try to work hard at coming across as perfect all the time. Here's an example of being human. At the moment, we're all, spending a lot of time on Zoom and whatever, and doing these virtual calls. And don't worry if the doorbell goes, if an over-inquisitive child suddenly comes running in, or a dog starts barking. It's wonderful. It shows we're human. It's sort of, I think that's one of the good things that's come out of this terrible thing is, we've all sort of seen people in a bit of a different light. We've had a little glimpse into their homes, and we've seen them, sort of wearing a little sort of casual clothes. Sometimes we've had too much of a glimpse, I think. But yeah, so I think being human, but at the same time, if I'm banging on, I know I'm banging on, but it's really, really important if you do want to get the best out of people to display what I call the shape of your integrity the whole time. Really quick, because I am rabbiting, but I make time for people as much as I possibly can, even if it's just for 10 seconds to ask someone how they're doing, or pick up a phone and just phone someone quickly just to see how their day went. I show as best I possibly can that I really care about them. And I try and be open and honest to be human with people. But when I first sort of was given big teams of people to manage in the IT industry, I was a lot younger than I am now. I had hair and was a bit slimmer and all that. But I was managing a lot of people who were older than me. And a lot of people saw my style of leadership, which is probably a mentoring, coaching style of leadership. They saw it as being a soft touch. And people try to take advantage of that. And I realized very, very quickly that I had to have teeth. I had to be very sort of, I had to have distinct lines. So when I'm managing a team, the whole time I'm displaying what I call the shape of my integrity to people. And really quickly, my personal shape, and we're all different. I've got the overarching word there, I've got transparency. I need transparency with people. I need absolute honesty. There's 4 boxes under it really quickly. The first box there says care. Show me you care about yourself, the business, other people around you. Don't be a person who walks past things and says, oh, at a meeting next week, I noticed that wasn't working. Do something about it. Time, please make time for people, but also respect other people's time. If I say, let's meet at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, please try and be there. I know I've read management books on how to handle people who are late. I know all that, but I take it personally when you're late for me. The third word in there is don't try to avoid making mistakes, but don't be petrified of making mistakes. Otherwise, we're never, ever going to be able to do something different. If we're all just like some rock climber stuck up a cliff face who's trying to move or something, don't be frightened of making mistakes. And the other word in there is help. We all, especially the pressure some of us are under at the moment, we all have anxieties and things. Don't ever be too embarrassed to come in confidence and discuss those with me as a leader. And I will give you all the support, and everybody around us and the team will do that. And the last thing on my little list there, so I've got the transparency, the honesty, the 4 boxes is, if you're enjoying yourself, let your face know. So let's have some fun as well. Let's come into work with a big smile on our face, and let's make it a lot of fun out there. Now, the reason I have that shape to my integrity is I need people to understand exactly where they stand with me. And when people do cross those lines, for example, they turn up late that week for a second time, I'm pretty brutal and pretty straight with people, straight down the line with people. And I found that people tended to respect me an awful lot more for that. And on that word of respect, I hear this all the time. People talk about earning respect. You can't earn it. You can't earn respect. Respect is a gift. People either give it you or they don't give it you. And I found that people tended to give me respect if I was absolutely honest and upfront with people, if I could sort of rip my heart open. I'm banging on. I'll shut up. Sorry.
No, I love that. I mean, the elements of time and care. I think it's so important, but it's also bringing those elements of authenticity. And there's a great book by Kim Scott called Radical Candor, right, which is a wonderful marriage of how to be direct with caring, and how that actually creates the environment you're talking about. So I'm going to
make a note of that.
Absolutely amazing book. Although there's a fantastic little TED talk that she did, which sums up the key points in about 10 minutes. So if you haven't got the attention span for the whole book, then 10-minute TED talk does the job beautifully. I suppose as we're coming through these times, as both people, as leaders, as businesses, what would be your core advice in terms of, or ideas on how we can differentiate ourselves? Full stop.
Well, part of that is of what I was just saying. At the end of the day, I suppose when I really think about it, it's all about how we make people feel. And it's how we make our people and our teams feel. It's how about we make customers, clients feel. It's all about how people feel. And all I suppose I know over the years is great people make people feel great. And real quick, a quick story, an absolute true story. This I was on an aeroplane flying to Tenerife. I'm sat next to a self-made multimillionaire. I know he's a multimillionaire because he kept telling me. It's boring. And amongst all the stories about how much money he shoved in his trousers over the years, he suddenly came out with a gem of what I call a TNT story. He said, Adrian, he said, just 6 weeks ago, so I'm flying from Johannesburg to Los Angeles. What a long flight. He said, out of absolute boredom on this long flight, he pulled a book out of his bag his wife had recommended. He said, I'm so engrossed in this book, I'm unaware of what's going on around me. And he said, suddenly, he said, I suddenly realized at the back of the plane, there's a lot of commotion, a lot of very excited voices back there. He said, but I can't see what's happening. He said, so I just carried on reading. He said, it must have been a good hour or so later. He said, I suddenly became aware of somebody standing over me. And he said, I just assumed in my head it was a steward or a stewardess. And he said, I marked my page and I casually closed my book. I put it on the spare seat. And he said, I looked up. He said, you know, when you can't take on board what you're looking at, he said, I kid you not. He said, I'm now looking straight into the face of Nelson Mandela.
Just a sec. Sure. Translate into which language?
Siri's just gone off. Can you believe that? He said, I'm looking straight into the face of Nelson Mandela. And I said, you're kidding? He said, no. And he said, he stood there and he put his hand out to me. So I'm so sorry to interrupt you. So I wanted to come and say hello to you. He said, my name is Nelson Mandela. And he said, he came and sat in the seat next to me. He said, we were chatting away for the next 10 minutes. He said, I'm sat there pinching myself. He said, I'm chatting to Nelson Mandela. He said, why I'm telling you this, Adrian? He said, Nelson Mandela was 88 years of age at the time. He said, that jumbo jet had 450 passengers on board it. And he said, I think it took him over 3 hours but he met every single person. You know, great people make people feel great. We've all come across people that you've come away from them and you just go, oh, wow. Oh, bloody hell, wow. You know, there's just some people who've got that time for you, that they're listeners. So how do we differentiate ourselves? Well, I think it's what I call TNTs. Now, at all the presentations, all the keynotes, all the workshops I do, I ask people, if there's one thing I'd ask you to take away, it's TNTs. TNTs are tiny, noticeable things. They're absolutely tiny, but they are incredibly explosive. And they create the biggest, longest lasting pictures in people's minds. They're the things people see. They show you care. They make and break relationships. And the wonderful thing is they cost nothing. They're the visible difference between 4- and 5-star customer service. They're the difference between a manager and a leader. They're the difference between a team that's flying and a team that's floundering. They're the things that people go home and moan to their partners about, but then don't mention at work. They're the little things you see that please people, annoy people, little things that irritate people, you know, all the tiny things, you know, like you hear someone turn around and say, oh, we just booked a holiday, you know, say, oh, anywhere nice, you know, like, no, this year we're hoping to go somewhere that's awful. They're all the sort of, all the little TNT things that irritate. How many times have you ever come up to, I love this one, I heard this other, how many times have you ever come up to a door and you've tried pushing it, someone shouts out, you got to pull it, you got to pull it. You say, oh, thanks for that. Thanks, Planners to start trying to lift it from the bottom, you know. The TNTs, I'm being serious, they're all the little things that people do. The TNTs, the best description is they're all the little things that people don't need to do, but do. They could be as small as a smile, as tiny as a thank you, a handwritten note to say thank you to someone in the world of emails, remembering if a client has milk in their tea, remembering someone's first name. They're all the little things. You know, Peter, when I'm speaking at events, in coffee breaks, I'm lucky. I get chatting to so many incredible people. A lot of people most of the time are telling me why they love working where they're working, or they're whispering in my ear they're thinking of leaving. It's never to do with big stuff. It's always to do with tiny little things, the TNTs that make a difference. Can I tell you a quick TNT story?
Go on then.
Really quick, right? This tells you, it shows you how explosive they are. And I'll try and keep it brief and so fun. I was speaking at I was in Antwerp with Unilever. They had a conference. I was chuffed to bits. It was based around polar bear pirates. The afternoon was dedicated to TNTs, how they can improve relationships with customers and suppliers. When I'd finished speaking, they invited people on stage to share TNT experiences. And a young guy got up on stage with me and he told us this story. He said, a businessman I know of over the years, he's had lots of attempts at getting different businesses off the ground. He's worked his socks off, but never had the lucky dessert until 5 years ago. Him and his wife remortgaged the house, threw every last drop of money they got into the one business. This business has flown. It's made them a fortune. He, the husband, has never, ever owned in his life a brand new car. His wife turned around, so I'm not being funny. If you want a new car, go get one. Goes out to choose a new car. Ends up a choice between a Mercedes and a Lexus. In the end, he goes to the Mercedes. Within days, a brand new, top of the range, all singing, fully loaded, beautiful Merc arrives on his driveway. He's like a big kid at Christmas, so excited driving around in it, when suddenly he noticed it's missing the cigarette lighter. Something that costs next to nothing in such an expensive car. I said, you've never seen anybody get so upset. He said, he doesn't even smoke. He's on the phone to Mercedes. Mercedes said, we're so sorry, we'll sort it out. By chance, the same day, the Lexus salesman phoned him in his office and said, I'm just wondering if you've made a decision yet on your choice of cars. He said, oh, I have. He said, I've taken delivery today of a Mercedes. Straight away, the Lexus sales guy turned around. He said, Mercedes are beautiful cars. He said, you must be delighted with this. Well, I am and I'm not. And he told him about the missing cigarette lighter. Straight away, the Lexus sales guy turned around. He said, listen, Mercedes are fantastic with customer service. I'm sure they'll sort it out for you. Look, I don't want to keep you any longer. All I ask is when the day arrives, when you get bored of driving around in that wonderful Merc, you reconsider buying a Lexus. You say, I promise I will. Appreciate you calling. Good talking to you. Thank you. Bye. This man leaves his office, gets in his Merc, drives home to his house. House is in darkness, just trying to get his key in the door with all these bags and his bits. Suddenly his neighbor comes bounding up the drive with a great big box in her hand. I'm so glad I've caught you. A delivery guy tried to deliver this to your house at 4 o'clock. No one was in. I took it off inside. He takes the parcel to the kitchen and wraps it there in the middle of the parcel. There's a shoebox. There in the middle of the shoebox is a mountain of cotton wool. Nestling on the top of the cotton wool is the Mercedes cigarette lighter. And underneath it is a compliment slip that just simply says, with very best wishes, your Lexus salesman. TNTs are all the little things that people don't need to do, but do. And they're the things that differentiate us as a business. When I was running small businesses competing against massive competitors, TNTs were my secret weapon. We just really blow customers away every single day with little TNT things that we could differentiate ourselves. That's how we differentiate with TNTs.
That's fantastic. And
a bit long-winded, but I got there.
yeah, I love that story, but that really shows the boom of a TNT. Absolutely fantastic. And I'm looking at this as people and businesses are coming out of lockdown, and some businesses are now in a position where they can trade, some can be open, some actually can't quite be open. And therefore, everyone's at a different stage. The reality is this changing, fluxing state of normal, I believe, is going to be with us certainly through the whole of this year, probably well into next, maybe even beyond that. And I suppose coming through these times for people and businesses, what advice would you give them about really staying focused and staying resilient in order to keep that drive going and keep themselves going well into the future? Because at some point, most of us are going to get to that point where we feel beaten down. So what would your advice there be?
I don't think there's ever been a more critical time for having clear goals. Goal setting right now has never been so important. It's critical that you have focus, you have goals, that you keep that sense of momentum going, that sense of progress. Just really quickly, if you get a moment, Google a thing called the $300 million button. A major online retailer on the front page of their website had a click-through button with the word register on. They took the word register off and replaced it with the word continue. As a direct result, revenue that year alone went up by an additional $300 million, because continue gives people a sense of progress. It is critical you have a sense of progress. At the heart of having a sense of progress, I think, it is great goal setting to do two things: give us much needed focus, but also to force neuroplasticity. Anybody listening to this, please hold your hands in front of you. Pretend your hands in front of you. You're holding your brain. Pretend some of you probably need to put your hands a bit closer together. In that area there, have a look at that, Peter. There's a pink pulsating blob there. It weighs about 1.5 kilograms. In that area there, in your hands, there's over 100,000 miles worth of wiring. There are 86 billion connections. There's more connections in your hands than there are stars in the galaxy. It is sending up to 100,000 trillion messages per second. Your brain is the most powerful biocomputer that we know of as yet in this universe. But what makes it so powerful is this word neuroplasticity. It is the only computer we know of as yet that can actually physically change itself. It can build its own wires and connections. But to get it to do that, we have to force it. We have to force it regularly, intensely over long periods of time. And there's only one place where the magic happens, and that is when you are on the front doorstep of your comfort zone. If you spend your life in your comfort zone, you won't build a single connection. Go too far beyond it, you go into absolute confusion. There's only one place it happens. London black cab drivers, apparently they have to take an exam, don't they? It's called the knowledge. I think it's 20-odd thousand street names, 20-odd thousand places of interest, and all the connecting routes between them. While they're spending their time, the years doing that exam, the hippocampi that looks after memory physically grows to accommodate all those new connections that they've built, because every day they're out there on mopeds, scooters, bicycles, whatever, motorbikes, and they're learning new street names every day. They're forcing the brain. So having goals, as well as just giving us focus, also forces neuroplasticity. It forces the brain to physically change itself. And if you're a person, when you're in a team, a lot of people see progress in teams, unfortunately, as purely coming up a promotion ladder. That's wonderful. When I was running teams, I always wanted people to, be promoted and, and see that as progress. But the real progress I want to see is developing people sideways in a team. So I have someone who's an assistant, the under assistant of the assistant. I still want that person every day having goals, growing themselves, developing themselves sideways, having a sense of progress in that role. Whether whoever that person is in that team, having a sense of progress. Who knows? I mean, nobody seems to, everyone's got an opinion on where things are going to go. And I think, Peter, you and I talked about it, whatever it will end up as being will become the normal. I don't think anything's ever going to go back to exactly how it was, but whatever it is, all I know, and if I was running a big business, especially now, all I know is now is the opportunity to become business fit. Now is the opportunity to really, really get your business in shape. Now is the time to be putting in the hard work and taking a really good look at yourself and thinking, when things do sort of open up completely, what can we as a business be doing better for our customers, for our clients out there? How can we be more effective at what we're offering people?
So on that basis, on that note, what is it that's really going to separate the most successful business people from everyone else?
Those who are in a position to adapt. Those are the people who are going to be agile enough to move whichever way they have to move. Those are people who are going to be open to new things and seeing and doing things completely differently, as they always have been. They'll be the people that come out of this the best. But I think the thing is I know it's awful at the moment, and some people are in a real dire straits, I know that. But if we can somehow see this as an opportunity and keep that positivity, but I can't stress enough the importance. You guys know probably better than I do about. I'm not going to start going on about goal setting, and Peter, you certainly know. The importance of having goals. When I was putting the books together, I used to interview successful people from all walks of life. And the one word when I was sort of packing my stuff up at the end, I used to say to them, what is the one thing that you've done differently to other people that's made you get right to the very top? And the word that came up more than ever was always focus. Having that absolute focus and as the belief and in what you're doing, that absolute goal setting. I can't stress it enough. And if Jack was here, the co-author of Sort Your Brain Out, he'd be banging on about the importance of setting goals.
I suppose that's the next question, really, because you did co-write Sort Your Brain Out with Jack. And I did notice when you said, like looking at hands, now you probably need to move them closer together. So mine are now here, and I'm looking at my brain, and actually, I suppose coming through these times, it's very easy for your brain to take those bashes and those dents and those knocks of real life, and challenges of things not going right, things not going the way you wanted or expected, your plans not coming to fruition. So what would be your top tips for me to sort my head out? Release
the inner child, Peter. I would say that's it. I did 6 years of research into the most successful people on the planet, and running teams of people, as I said to you earlier, there are always 2 or 3 people. Out of say a team of 100 people, there were 2 or 3 people extraordinary. And I became obsessed with why they are so successful. And I started begging interviews of the rich, the famous, the billionaires, the entrepreneurs. And then people started to contact me with people who weren't rich and famous, but were incredibly successful in their own right. There was a bin man in Manchester, there was a nursing sister in Bristol, incredibly successful people, not financially successful, but very successful. And what I discovered was that they all share 13 things in common. I'm not going to go through all of them in detail, but the number one, they're people that ask questions. They're always challenging things. They're curious people. When you meet them, they don't tend to talk much about themselves. They're always asking about you. How many times have any of you ever been out for an evening with someone And all this other person, all they do all night long is talk about themselves. At the end of the night, they turn around and say, well, that's enough about me. What do you think of me? Yeah? They're always asking questions. They're enthusiastic. If you want people to engage with you, be more passionate about them than they are themselves. It's as simple as that. But, you know, if you want, whenever you meet someone, be more passionate about them, their business. I'll tell you what, there's a lot of people in the world of sport who have gone a lot further than they ever thought they could because they met someone who really believed they could. You know, be more passionate about customers, clients, people around you, and what they're capable of, they are themselves. Determination, you know, my goodness me, how determined are we? You know, it's, you know, I like people, anybody, I'm a motivational speaker, but, you know, now and again I get down, you know, we all do. And I've got two heroines. I've got Wilma Rudolph. Wilma, born in Clarksville, Tennessee, the 20th of 22 children, weighing 4.5 pounds, a premature baby. You know, by the age of 4, she contracted scarlet fever, double pneumonia. Then she went on to contract polio, told she'd never, ever walk again. Rome 1960, Wilma Rudolph became the first American woman athlete ever to win 3 Olympic gold medals. You know, if you ever doubt yourself and what you are capable of, the next time she ever comes to your area, the next time she comes to Froome, Peter, get a ticket to see Evelyn Glennie. Evelyn Glennie is the greatest solo percussionist who's ever walked on God's earth. And when she steps out on stage in front of you, there's only one word will come to your mind, and that is genius. Give yourself a nudge. Evelyn Glennie is profoundly deaf and has been since the age of 12. She's the world's greatest solo percussionist. You know, people turn around to me and say, oh, I don't think I'd be capable of doing that. Please, please, come on. I think you could. Determination, belief. You know, these people have DIY belief. You know, don't spend your, what I call your 44.4 seconds waiting. You wait forever. Start doing it, belief, do it yourself belief. You know, as Nelson Mandela once famously turned around and said, you know, it always seems impossible until it's done. They're doers, they get on with things. Again, when I'm trying to write a book, you know, it's so hard sometimes to get down and write. You know, I find every excuse I possibly can in this house to do something else. And, you know, you got to start doing. You start doing. Inspiration will come and find you. Don't wait or go looking for inspiration. They put the F word in. They have fun. They have a laugh. You know, it really. You know, where'd you get your best ideas? It's in the bathroom, isn't it? Let's be honest. You know, you're stepping in a shower because the trap door to your subconscious is open, and that's permanently rippling up to the surface, bubbling up all these ideas and solutions and ideas. You know, I want people having fun because people are relaxed when they're having fun. And they're more innovative and more creative. Determination, belief, they bounce back. J.K. Rowling, her first, you know, Harry Potter book, rejected by 12 publishing houses. They're authentic, as I discussed earlier. You know, they're real. They keep things simple. Simple, I think, is the very best friend of consistency out there. I want to keep things very, very simple, and they are forever on the edge of their comfort zone. They're always making mistakes. They're always trying out new things. They're always progressing. They're always making mistakes, the most successful people in the world. And the last, probably the most important thing, they have a thing I call corkscrew thinking. They're always thinking around obstacles, walls and barriers for solutions to problems. Now, I did that 6 years of research. Something started to really irritate me. It drove me nuts, because I began to realize I know someone in my life who has all of these in abundance. I'm thinking of people I work with, socialize with. And then one evening I'm at home watching the television when suddenly my 6-year-old son comes rocketing into the lounge. Dad! Don't do it, give me a heart attack. Is it true? You know, are we really going to the beach tomorrow? You know, hands up any of you if you lawfully spend any time around young children. You know, do they ever stop asking questions? Yeah, are we halfway there? You know, Dad, Mum, Dad, it's snowing. Belief, they believe in tooth fairies. They believe in Father Christmas. You know, they believe in life. You know, as an adult, when we wake, our eyes open so slow. They just, oh, good, I'm here again. They're doers. They just get on with things, don't they? Simple. They got Olympic medals. Energy. They have energy. I forgot to mention that on the adults. If we could hook up young children to electric cars, you know, they just run forever. We could all make an absolute fortune here. You know, belief, you know, the doers, you know, they're authentic. They can't be anything else but them. They bounce back. They bounce back. They're so resilient. It's unbelievable. And corkscrew thinking, they have no need for it because they have no mental obstacles or barriers in their mind. think about this. When is the last time any of you ever heard a young child turn around to you and say, it's going to rain later? You'll never hear a young child say that. You know, we had all those. We used to have grazed knees. We're always falling down. We're always making mistakes. You know, as a child, you're permanently learning. You're permanently progressing as a young child. So really key to me is to release that inner child in people in my team. You know, I want people for the passion that the industry's never seen. I want people in my team so passionate. You know, people have never seen the likes. I want people asking questions, challenging things. I need people absolute belief in what we're doing, and I need people with that corkscrew thinking. I need to have that inner child. Whoa, I'm sorry if I have gone on a bit too long then, sorry.
I'd say in our office, well, firstly, I banned fun, and secondly, they all believe that my inner child is far too outer child.
No, it can't be, Peter, never.
I've created a rule, I'm the only one allowed to throw things. They ignore me entirely. Nothing new.
Is your office, is it in Frome itself or out? Is it?
Yeah, so the office is in Frome, so we've got the Progress Shed is here, and it's an industrial unit which we all called the Sheds, so hence the name came around. And we've got a growing team here, sat in front of me making notes and behaving themselves.
I hope not.
As soon as this ends, I'm sure I'm going to get a load of abuse.
Are they falling asleep during this?
What do you mean when it ends?
Oh, what do I mean when it ends? Excellent. But before we get some people to ask a few questions, if we've got time, I suppose I've got just one finishing question, which is really more around you than anything else. Because coming through a time like this as a motivational speaker, well, life's a bit rubbish because all your gigs have cancelled. So hence we're delighted to have been able to steal some of that time. And thank you so much, because it's been an amazing session for me, and I'm hoping for everybody else on. But really, I suppose, how do you see life after COVID panning out? And then we do have a couple of questions come in.
I don't know. All I know is I'm keeping myself as fit, as sharp. I've just almost finished writing another book. I've been incredibly busy doing that. I've written a book all about TNTs. I'm just started writing another book, which I'm getting quite excited about. I'm getting on with that, and I'm sort of forever coming up. I'm one of these people. It's sort of. It's a torture in some ways. I'm a tortured person. I'm forever sort of scribbling notes down and ideas, and my brain's forever spinning around with ideas of how we can better motivate people and do stuff. So all I know is it's quite easy for me, and I'm sounding like I'm absolutely full of the bovine stuff here, but my whole passion is people and motivation. So, you know, I've got the best job in the world. You know, if someone said to me, you could be, you know, the lead singer in some great famous rock band or something, I'd have to turn it down, because I absolutely love it. It's the only thing I'm any good at. And it's my whole passion is motivation and people, and how do we engage, how do we inspire people. And when we're talking about motivation, a lot of people think, you know, they tend to think of people doing incredible things, climbing mountains, sailing oceans, trekking to the North and South Pole. I think, you know, don't get me wrong, I love all that. I've got friends who are polar explorers, you know, but I can see where the inspiration comes from. What always interests me is what inspires everyday people to want to get out of bed, climb their own mountains and make a difference. You know, what motivates a person working at a local hospital whose job it is to serve cups of tea and coffee to patients? What motivates that person not only to do their job to serve cups of tea and coffee to patients, but to want to take that extra step and try and put a smile on that patient's face? So my whole interest is in what motivates people like me, everyday people, to want to be extraordinary. That's the passion, the passion, sorry, that I have. So for me, I'm just doing something I can genuinely say I completely love it. So I just carry on doing what I'm doing, writing books, scribbling down notes, and waiting so I can get back in front of an audience and be bounding around on stage and making people laugh and inspiring people and taking people on a roller coaster ride. But I would say anyone listening to this, if I'm never ever underestimate those TNTs. Never underestimate the little things. They're the big things to someone else.
Fantastic. And I'm hoping that as you bring out your next book, we'll be able to invite you and entice you to come back and join us again.
I'd love it.
I'll push you for a yes. I'd love to at this point.
I would, and if
Excellent.
I'm down, next time I'm down in Somerset, I'm going to be heading towards Frome. I'll tell you, you got the kettle there and all that, yeah.
Yeah, we've got a kettle, and we've even got a tea boy.
Yeah.
I'm going to get something thrown at me in a second. Abuse again.
That's polar bear pirate. Look, see.
Fantastic. Yeah, we like him. And I think we've got time for just one of the questions really, which was actually from Jim, who will be talking next week actually. But he would like to ask what exercises can you suggest to actually lead teams as they're coming back into the workplace?
What physical exercises you mean with a team building thing? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd keep them innovative. I'd have. I love team things where we've all got to come up with the most innovative, outlandish, crazy uses, the most ridiculous uses. I don't know, for a house brick, or a paper clip or something like that. I'd keep the sort of the brain active with stuff like that. I'd be sitting down with my team and working through goals with them as to what they're hoping to achieve. I think the other key with goal setting is that that people set their own goals. That people tend to buy in. I want people to be stakeholders. I want people to sort of have ownership of their goals. And setting goals that keep people just be on their comfort zone. And I'd want to be keeping people on their toes with the TNTs, so we can keep all the sort of outrageous, what can we do differently in the next Zoom call we're going to do? What's a TNT thing we can keep running through it, a theme, and staying in touch and keeping in touch with each other, sort of picking up the phone. We can't engage by email and text messages, picking up the phone, chatting to each other, a little handwritten note in the post to each other now and again, just all this sort of stuff, giving our thoughts, how we feel. I'd be keeping everyone together and keeping everyone's brain as active and as busy as ever, and I'd be keeping it fun.
Fun, definitely.
Fun.
Brilliant. So, at that point, we're heading towards time. So thank you so much for coming today. I think the lessons and the ideas and the thought patterns that come out, racing through to the elements of leadership, certainly on the balance between time, care, fallibility and integrity, and the elements of being authentic and forgetting to own a hindsight degree is a wonderful tool, because it's amazing how, if you're watching any of the news or anything at the moment, they're all wonderful with hindsight.
Yes.
It's a little bit scary, but actually understand this ability to adapt, and that the agile people and businesses, those who are prepared to move, those who are prepared to shift, those who are prepared to actually balance the risk,
yes,
and take the steps. And actually then it's the type of people, those people who have that determination, who can still have fun with developing that sense of progress. And I think, therefore, for me, it's been a really powerful session. So
thank you for that.
I don't care anyone else enjoyed it or not. I thought it was amazing. So thank you very much indeed for joining us. The thanks are all coming in on the chat box. I don't know if you see that or not, but I think everyone's had a great time and brilliant. And I would love to get you back in. Even better if we can actually get you back into the shed to do a live session from here. That would just be simply brilliant.
I'd love it. I can't thank you enough, and thank you all so much for listening to my stories. And I get so nervous before I speak at events or I do anything like this. I'm sort of a big bag of nerves, It's I used to be terrible, but I've got a lot better with it. But I know it's a good thing. I know it's a positive thing to get nervous, But But I really appreciate you having me along, and I just wish you guys all the very best. Have fun, and honestly, you'll be looking back on these days before you know it and thinking, I'll tell you what, wow, yeah, there'll be a lot of very, very positive things come out of it. I'm sure there will be.
Definitely. Brilliant. Thank you so much. Everyone, we'll see you next week, where we've got this new tool from Jim James. And finally, another massive thank you to Adrian. And you can get a single round of applause.
Thank
and
you.
as always, at the end of a session, we have to wave. I don't know why we feel obliged to wave, but I think it's because we can't shake. So brilliant. Thank you so much for being with us.
Smashing. Thanks, guys. Thank you all very much. Have a good one.
You too. Bye. See you shortly.